Hello, this is Allie with the Perception Trainers, author of The Perception Diet, and today I want to talk to you about the secret to making permanent positive life changes. So this is going to be part 1 and then part 2 will be posted later. So in this video, I want to explain to you the number one reason why people struggle to make positive permanent life changes. And I'm going to give you the one trick that you need in order to start moving towards making positive life changes. And then in part 2, I will give you essentially technique number 2 for making permanent positive life changes. And with these two things, you are going to be empowered to make whatever kind of changes in your life that you want to make, to become the person that you want to become, to change the external circumstances that you want to change, anything that you wish to alter in your life, you are going to have the exact tools that you need in order to do that, okay? So the first thing that I want to talk about is the number one reason why most people struggle to make permanent positive changes in their life. The reason why most people can identify that something's not working for them, they can identify that they don't like something in their life, but they struggle maybe for years and years and years and years and years to actually permanently shift to a new place where they're no longer struggling with that negative thing. And so, I've made lots of videos on self-sabotage, I've made videos on, the pain body, I've made lots of videos on kind of discovering why you might have these negative habits in your life. And that kind of work is beautiful, and that kind of work is awesome. And I think that it's really important to do that kind of digging work, to the bringing to your conscious mind all the stuff that's causing you and driving you to maybe have these negative habits. And I think it's really important to look at your foundational beliefs. It's really important to look at what you truly believe about yourself, what you believe about the world. It's important to start to understand how what has happened to you and what you've been through has affected you and caused you to behave in the way that you behave now. And so this video is not to say that that work is shouldn't be done, okay? This is to say that that kind of work is only going to get you 50% of the way, okay? So this is the number one secret to making a positive life change that you can actually maintain and sustain, and that you no longer have to struggle with the old thing, okay? And that secret is you need to understand where you want to go, okay? So most people, when they are looking at stuff in their life, like I say, there's so many tools out there for figuring out exactly why something isn't going the way that you want it to, or really honing in on exactly what it is about your life that's bothering you. So like I say, we can do lots of mind-body connection meditations to figure out where you're disconnected from your body, or where your belief system about your body is harming you, or you can figure out where your poverty mentality came from, or you can figure out that you have a poverty mentality. You can figure out that you have these kind of negative relationship habits that you just continue to do over and over again, and you make the same kind of actions or reactions to people, and that has a negative result, and you want to change that. And like I say, so bringing awareness to what we don't want, what is not desired, even to understand like eating disorder stuff for me was a big one for me. This is kind of how I learned this secret for making positive life change, is that I identified my eating disorder as something that I didn't want, right? I don't want these negative thoughts. I don't want these negative behaviors. I don't want to have this lifestyle that is so harmful for me. And that was kind of where I was for a really long time. And so, and like I say, the traditional kind of method for changing is to fight the old behaviors, right? So to fight the eating disorder stuff, to fight the relationship stuff, to fight what you normally do. And the problem with that is that it never works, and it never could work. Because let me give you an analogy to make this understandable, why you can't just fight the old thing. So pretend you want to transition to a vegan diet and you're eating a meat-based diet right now. And so, like, you have your plate, and normally when you eat, you have your meat, you have your vegetable, you have your starch, and, like, that's your thing. And now you're like, okay, I want to become a vegan, so I'm just going to remove the meat. Now, if you just remove the meat and you just have the veggie and starch and same portions, you've cut out a large calorie source that your body still needs. You still need those calories, and you've cut out a source of nutrients that your body still needs. So now, if you don't replace that meat with something, if you don't put something on the plate like lentils or just, quadrupling the starch and the veggies that you usually eat, or replacing it with, even like a meat substitute or something, if you don't replace it, you're going to be in a deficit of energy and you're going to be in a deficit of nutrients, right? Those nutrients and that energy that you were getting from that meat is no longer there. And if you don't replace it with something, chances are you'll fight your appetite, you'll fight your cravings for meat for as long as you can hold, but eventually the body's going to be like, no, if you're not going to replace it with something, if there's nothing new taking its place, I have to eat the meat, right? And you're going to continue to go back to meat over and over and over again, even though you don't want to, because the thing is, your body still needs that. And this is exactly what we're doing with trying to make positive changes in our life. We are really good at identifying the problem. We're really good at identifying what we don't want. And then we all just try to run away from it. We try to push it away. We try to get rid of it without ever replacing it with something. And this is creating this vacuum where the need that old behavior, so this is why I say doing these practices to figure out like why you're doing your negative behaviors. What need is getting met? How is it serving you? I've made lots of these videos, right? The self-sabotage series is really, really good to understand kind of why your negative behaviors are there and what they're serving, or how they're helping you. See, but to try to just get rid of the negative behavior, you're going to have a void left. You're going to have a deficit. So the key here is that you cannot become not something. All right? If you want to make a positive change in your life, you need to identify what you don't want, identify how you don't want to feel, identify how you don't want to be, and then say, how do I want to feel? How do I want to be? What do I want to replace this old thing? Okay? So like the example with the meat metaphor. If you don't want to eat meat anymore, you have to replace it with something. Okay? You can't just remove the meat and expect yourself to be fine. You need to replace it with lentils or rice or more of the vegetables and starch you were eating before, or whatever. You need to replace it. And so, like, for instance, with me, when I was moving through my eating disorder stuff, when I really started to make progress with actually changing my reality around my eating disorder stuff, was when I started to think, okay, if I'm not going to have this eating disorder anymore, if I'm not going to have eating disorder to meet my needs for control, if I'm not going to have eating disorder to meet my needs for numbing out my emotions that I can't handle, if I'm not going to have eating disorder to do all these things, what am I going to have instead? Who do I want to be instead? How do I want to act instead? Okay? So how do I want to eat? How do I want to feel? How am I going to react when my emotions come up? What's the new habit that I'm going to do instead of starving? How am I going to react when I'm overwhelmed with my life and I feel like I need control? What's my new thing other than starving or counting my calories or checking my weight 40 times a day? What's my new habit? What's the thing that I'm going to do instead? And then I started to just experiment with things, right? So for me, talking to people really helped. Getting people to just listen. I got a therapist. I talked to my sister over and over and over again. I started to get radically honest with myself about how I felt. I started meditating. I started practicing yoga more. I started to just really visualize the person that I wanted to be. And I started acting like that person. You see? I started replacing my old habits with the new habits of how I wanted to be. So I wanted to feel like I was in control. So instead of starving, I started to just plan my days a little bit and be a little bit more assertive with the people around me instead of just letting everyone walk all over me. And I started to, voice my opinion and voice my needs a little bit more. And yeah, it was scary and it was hard, but the thing was, I understood that that was the need that I needed to get met. I needed to feel like I had some control in my life, and if I wasn't going to use my diet, I needed to use something else. Okay, so the need was still there. I couldn't just stop the old behavior and expect myself to not need it anymore. You see, I needed to replace that old behavior with a new behavior. I needed comfort. So what am I going to do for comfort instead of count my calories? Well, maybe I'm going to journal. Maybe I'm going to go for a walk in nature. Maybe I'm going to call my sister. And I started to build a repertoire of, okay, how can I get my needs met in a way that is in alignment with the person that I want to be? So that is the number one tip that you need for making positive lifestyle changes, is identify what you don't want. Identify how you don't want to feel. Identify what's not working, and then decide, who do I want to be and how am I going to meet that need in a new positive way. Okay? So I'm not just trying to run away from the old behavior. I'm not trying to become not something. I am becoming something new instead. Okay? So does that make sense? It is not about running away from the old thing. It's not about trying to push away the old thing. It's not about trying to resist the old thing. It's to say the old thing, the negative behavior, the negative habit is there for a reason. So I do my work. I figure out why it's there. And then I decide who I want to be instead. How I want to be instead. And you start to act that way. Okay? You start to implement those new behaviors, those new thoughts, that new way of being, that new way of reacting, right? That gets the same need met, but in a new positive way that's in alignment with how you want to feel, that's in alignment with who you want to be. So who do you want to be? How do you want to feel? How do you want your life to look? And then you start to make choices that align with that, okay? Getting the same needs met, aligning those choices. So identify the problem. Identify what that problem is doing for you. So what need is being met with that problem? Who do you want to be instead? How are you going to get that need met in a way that's in alignment with who you want to be? And then you start practicing those new behaviors, okay? And then the old stuff falls away naturally. You don't have to fight it. And that is the biggest key. It's not about fighting the old. It's about focusing on building the new. You will never have to fight the old a day in your life if you are continually focusing on building the new, okay? And then the battle is over. You don't have to fight. You don't have to struggle. You don't have to try to not do the old thing. You just have to continue to build doing the new thing. And it's so much easier and so much more effective. And the way to change is to figure out how you want to feel. Figure out the new thing that's going to replace the old thing. Okay, so if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below. I love hearing from you. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you want me to talk about. I've been getting lots of requests for videos on relationships, and so I want you to tell me below, what do you want me to talk about specifically with relationships, okay? And because, like I say, like that's a pretty general, vague thing to ask for. So I'm really open to your suggestions, but I want to make sure that I'm talking about something that you actually want to hear about, because I could go off on a tangent about relationships that maybe has nothing to do with what you want. So let me know down below. Find me on Facebook, Perception Trainers. Find me on Instagram. I'm Urban Fruit Bat, and that's it. I will talk to you in the next video. Thanks, guys.